Hi there. Did you know that you can actually run your business or really a career of your choosing, your dream career, from really any location, a location of your choosing, or even from a couple or three different places, for instance, around the world? So there's this great book called The Millionaire Messenger, and the title is Make a Difference in a Fortune Sharing Your Advice. It's written by Brendan Burchard, or Burchard, I think is the way he pronounces it. And even if you don't get the book, I would highly recommend checking out his website, which I think is theexpertacademy.com. But if you just, you just Google Millionaire Messenger, his name will come up, and I'm sure his websites will come up. So you really, I would recommend you definitely checking out this book. It's pretty intriguing, even if you have no idea how you would possibly be able to run your business or have a career from the location that you choose. So the reason I love this book is because he is so clear and he walks you through step by step how you would make that happen. And what's great is that it's based on basically his story, which is really the best kind of advice you'd ever want to get. He's been through, he has a story, which I'll get to how that's connected in a second to what I'm talking about here today. But he makes recommendations based on real world things that enabled him, the steps that he took that enabled him to become successful. And so I would highly recommend it. He's very successful. It's called The Millionaire Messenger, so it's about creating a lucrative business or a lucrative career for yourself. But it's about, as the title says, it's about making a difference. So two things that you need in order to consider having a career like that is to have a story. And who doesn't have a story? You probably have some kind of a situation that you grew up with maybe, or something you faced in your adult life that maybe people have come to you and turned to you for advice in those areas because you've actually been through it and you've landed on your feet successfully. Well, that's the major premise to his book, that once you have this story identified and how you can help people with it, that's really all you need. Because there are lots of people out there who, like for him, for instance, he was a new business owner and he had a message and a story that he wanted to share, and he wasn't sure how to go about doing that. So he struggled for years trying to figure out how to reach as many people as he could with his story. And he eventually came up with this system, which he, describes in his book. It has to do a little bit with technology, of course, but also has to do with building community and working with like-minded partners, which is a really great collaborative way to do your job. So that's really the first premise, is to have a story. And then the second one is to want to make the world a better place. And I think a lot of us want to do that. So I'll just give you an example in my life of actually how I've actually done what he's talking about. So you may have seen my other videos where I talk about how I grew up. I grew up in a nice area of Connecticut. I was the youngest of four kids. And my dad, when I was about 10 years old, my dad, who worked in New York City, had a corporate job. He's a financial guy, like a chief financial officer kind of a guy. And he came home to my mom, and he just announced that he was going to leave his job and start a consulting practice. And this was the 1960s, so partners, couples didn't really have equal decision-making capabilities or processes, unfortunately. And so my mom was really concerned about it. She knew we didn't have a lot of money in the bank. She wasn't working. There were four of us kids. I think two of us actually at that point were in college, so there were these huge, college bills that had to be paid. And my dad was just going to go and leave his job. And he did. He actually did go and leave his job. And it went south pretty quickly. And then that's when the trouble began for my family. To start with, I'm sure my mom was not pleased with him. And then, he ran out of money. He actually went into the college funds that we'd been given by a relative to pay for our college many years later. And he dipped into those to cover the bills. And he dipped into, went into a lot of debt just to pay the bills. And so there's a lot of things that happened having to do with that. We had to move, and we actually ended up in Vermont, which was a nice place, but then my parents got divorced. Anyway, so we all have stories like that. And so I have discovered, because that's my background and because I lived through the pain that my parents went through, I lived through my mom's not feeling as if she had control, her frustration. I lived through, when I was 13, I'd get home from school, and we lived in Burlington, Vermont, where I still live, and I would get home from school and the phone would ring, at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I was alone in the house before my parents got home from work. And there would be bill collectors on the line, like bullying me, and I was like this 13-year-old, just, barely got, to this new location. We had just moved, and my parents were obviously having a lot of financial problems. So I really absorbed a lot of that stress. And so as an adult, what I've done is I've actually worked with my own children who are now in their 20s and financially in great shape. So I've really, in my adult life, turned around that childhood story by helping my own children learn how to handle money at an early age, as well as, just tracking and all those things that you want to do to handle money well. And they're financially, they're only like 24 and 26, and they're just in great shape and don't have all that money crap that I had when I was a kid. And so that's one outshot. But in terms of a career, what I do now is I'm really passionate. I have a financial services background, which comes in really handy. And so I help people navigate career transitions. And so I help them figure out what their life purpose is. What is their story? What is it that they are meant to share with the world? How can they make the world a better place in a way that's meaningful for them? And the money piece goes right with that. And I help them put the financial ducks in a row, as well as, many other steps that they need to take in order to land on their feet successfully on the other side of change. So if they're thinking about starting a business, they don't do what my dad did. They don't just kind of up and leave without some kind of really realistic financial plan. They do what I did actually in my own life. When I went from being employed to self-employed, I had 2 or 3 backup plans. And I'll mention my book in a second, and I have a whole chapter on my book on this financial piece and my, more information about my story. But the idea is that I took what was really a pretty difficult situation as a kid, and I've turned it around not only in my own family with my own children, but also when I talk to people in the world about really expressing their life purpose and not necessarily feeling like they need to be tied down to a job. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you make the transition to self-employment, for instance, yes, take the leap, but, tie up your camel, so to speak. Be smart about what steps logically you need to take as part of that process. So that's just an example of my story and how I've helped, as Brendan Burchard talks about in his book, how I've kind of helped people because of the struggles that I've had in the past. So what I'd recommend is that you think about taking one step as an inspiration from this video. And maybe it's picking up Brendan's book. Maybe it's just thinking about as you drive to work or from work, or, you have some time, just some thinking time to think about what kind of story, you might be able to share with people. So that would be one thing. You can also email me at corneliaward.com, and I'd be happy to give you a copy of the life purpose statement that's also in my book that will help you get started as well. So also dream about, it's kind of the carrot thing, where is it that you want to live? And, how can you make that happen? By, for instance, maybe using this method in Brendan's book. So I invite you to do that. There's a couple of things that I also wanted to mention to you at the end here. I have been doing these free community phone calls since, about a month now, and we're having a lot of fun, and I'm helping people just call in. It doesn't cost them any money, and we've been focusing on life purpose and career, and I help people kind of strategize about what their next steps might be around making a transition career-wise. And so if that would be helpful to you, feel free to call in. You'll need to email me at cornelia@corneliaward.com to get the call-in information. It's good to show up live so that you can get that coaching. And at the same time, it's recorded, so you can listen later. So I invite you to do that. So the next one is Thursday, the 13th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So feel free to email me at cornelia@corneliaward.com about that. And then the last thing, since I've mentioned my book, is you can check out my book at goforwardfearlesslybook.com/pre-order. That's goforwardfearlesslybook.com/pre-order. You can go there and you can order the book there. I'd be happy to sign it for you and get it shipped off right away. Or you can go to the Women's Expo, which is, I forget the date, I think it's the 15th here in Essex, Vermont. And you could go to the booth for the Jungian Center for Spiritual Sciences. I'll be there with books to give to people and sign and that kind of thing. And I also will be actually, I think it's March 29th, the 29th of March from 10 to noon. I will be at the Jungian Center actually in Waterbury Center giving a free workshop and book signing about life purpose. So that would be something you'd want to register with Sue Mertens about, and you can go to the Jungian Center for Spiritual Sciences website to get her contact information. So that's a lot of information today. I hope that is helpful. A lot of people are going through transitions right now. And the big thing is just, just kind of blast through that fear. Just take one small step at a time, and you'll find that you'll build some momentum. And, you really deserve to do something. Don't wake up like 80% of working Americans just, hating your job and hating going to work and feeling not passionate about what you do. Take care.